It's scary, mind-blowing, confusing, and it's like, here I am fighting for my life. 3 months ago, actually my last day of working here in the shipyard was March the 31st. I woke up April the 1st on a Wednesday morning telling my wife I felt tired. And she said, well, you've been working a lot of overtime. Maybe you need to get some rest. And I said, okay. So I stayed home, called in for vacation. And the next day, Thursday, April the 2nd, it was no better. I was already feeling achy. Throat was a little scratchy. And I, being the person that I am, I didn't want to cause anyone to get sick, so I stayed home. Then I said, well, I'm not going to go to work on Friday. I'll just go back on Monday. So little did I know, Saturday, my temperature went up. So my wife started giving me ibuprofen to make it come down or where it's manageable. Apparently that didn't help. So later on, it went up, spiked up to 103.2. So then she called the doctors on call for the weekend. And they said, well, keep giving him the ibuprofen. And if he get any worse, take him to the emergency room. So I made it through the weekend. And Monday morning, April the 6th, I had a doctor's appointment. So when I pulled up, I had to call them, and they said, well, you're in the lot? I said, yes. They said, do you have a mask? I said, I do. So they come out with their shield on, their mask on, they have on their gloves and a robe or a cape or whatever. And they said, well, roll your window down, open your door, and just turn around like you're going to get out, but don't get out. So they took a swab and they swabbed my throat. And they said, well, put the mask back on, go back home. Do not go back to work until you hear from us in 3 to 4 days. So I went back home. I'm kind of worried. So Friday, April the 10th, is when everything happened. I received a phone call from my doctor around 9:37. And she said, Mr. Ferebee, how you feeling? I said, well, not that good. She said, well, you did test positive. You have COVID-19. And I said, wow. She said, just take it easy. Stay in quarantine for 14 days, you and your wife. And I said, okay. And she said, if anything you need, give me a call. Hung the phone up. I would say about 15 to 30 minutes later, all of a sudden, my wife was cooking breakfast. I couldn't smell the bacon. Then I was coughing a little, so I figured I'd take a cough drop. I couldn't even taste that. And I'm like, wow, something ain't right. So she was sitting in the other room doing bills. So I walked over and I said, well, Kathy, I said, would you call the shipyard, my boss, and let him know what's going on with me? And she said, Wilton, you can do that. And I'm like, all of a sudden, can you call my boss for me? Couldn't breathe. My taste, smell, and breathing. It was just like this. So I said, well, I'll do it later. So I walked across the room back to my bedroom, sat in my recliner, trying to get myself together. But it got worse. So finally she got up and she came over and she said, well, how you feeling? And I said, I can't breathe. Then I was in the floor. That made her nervous. She said, should I call 911 now? I said, no, I'm going to try to get myself together. And then it didn't get any better. So she said, I'm calling them. So she called 911. When the dispatcher got on the phone, she explained what was going on, that I had COVID-19. She said, okay. So they sent their ambulance or rescue squad to my house. And she said, what is he doing now? She said, well, he's on the floor and he has brown eyes, but I only see the white. She said, we're losing him. Tap him on his hand and talk to him. And she, matter of fact, put me on the speaker. I can talk to him. Mr. Ferebee, she said. I wasn't responsive. And she said, Mr. Ferebee, stay with us. I can hear the siren in the background. They're close. So finally they came. My wife opened the door, let them come in. I'm in the floor like, can't breathe. I'm frightened. So they tried to give me tubes to go up my nose, and they went up, came out this side, and they poured it out. Then they stuck it in again, and it came in my throat, and it was choking me. So they took it out again. My heart started beating crazy. And they said, well, we got to get him to the truck. So they took me down the steps. But once I got outside, they worked on me in the back of that ambulance for 30 minutes. Wow. First of all, they was trying to get blood. And they couldn't find the veins, because if you don't have oxygen to your blood, the veins will collapse. So they said, this is not good. I'm hearing this, and I'm like, none of this sounds good. So they tried both arms. They couldn't get no blood. They couldn't get me to breathe properly. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not going to make it. So I said, well, God, I know I'm saved. You did that 29 years ago. But if I've done anybody wrong, please forgive me. I don't want to die like this. But if I got to, I'm ready. Then the rescue worker said, well, we got one other place we could go. But we got to be extremely careful, because if we puncture it, he'll bleed out, and we won't get him to the hospital in time. It's a main artery in your neck that supplies our body. And he was just touching and feeling. He said, right there. And they pushed it in, and he hit it. He said, take him to the hospital now. So upon arriving to the hospital, Centera Careplex in Hampton, they took me in. They worked on me in ICU from 12:15 to around 3:35. So they all had to incubate me because I couldn't breathe, and they can't put that ventilator in you with you conscious. So I was there for 3 days with the ventilator. And the fourth day, they said, well, we're going to see if he can breathe on his own. And they took the ventilator out, and they had to put it back because I couldn't breathe. But the doctors told me, they said, Mr. Ferebee, we've done all that we can do. The rest is up to God. So within my inner being, I prayed because I couldn't talk. I said, Lord, help me. And then I heard a voice say, breathe now. And I felt my lungs expanding. And they said, wow, did you see that? That's a miracle. And they took the ventilator off of me. They said, we're going to try him for 30 minutes and see if it gets better. But another thing I wanted to share with you is they have an oxygen tester. And when you go to your doctor, they put it on your finger to see what your oxygen level is. And it's supposed to be between 90 and 99. Mine had got down to 70. So it started going back up. And they said, that's good. So as I was lying in my bed alone, you can have no visitors. It's like you by yourself. My wife was hysterical. She couldn't call, couldn't talk, nothing other than what they told her. So I kept hearing people screaming. I guess they were passing away or whatever, dying. And it got to me. So finally they released me. They said, you can go home, because I was doing good. My vital signs were great. So when I went home, I had to stay upstairs in my house for 21 days. And can you imagine being married 35 years? I hadn't seen her 21 days in the same house. And I was going stir crazy in that room because I couldn't go out because of the droplets and everything and towels under the door so nothing can get out. It was mind-wrecking. So they had a nurse come in and she took care of my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then a couple of days they said, well, we're going to see if you can walk down the hallway. And I did. But the whole thing I want people to realize about this COVID-19 is serious. And it can happen to anyone. The severeness of it is devastating. But what you really need to do is what they ask. Wash your hands and wear your mask. Because you can help yourself as well as another person. But I want you to picture this. A little kid, 2, 3, 4 to 5 to 6 years old. And you come home because you didn't want to wear your mask. And they get COVID-19. Can you imagine a child that's 2 or 3 years old can't breathe? And let's say they don't make it. For the rest of your life, you're going to beat yourself up. Because all I had to do was wear my mask. And I didn't do it. You need to take it serious. From me, I can use myself an example. I've never been sick in my 60-year-old life. I've never had the flu. I've never had chicken pox. But all of a sudden, I'm just as healthy as you can go. And they attack my body. So you have to look at the realness of it. Yes, you hear about it on the news and you see it. But it's real. Especially when it happened to someone that you know. When you hear about other places, other cities, that's one thing. But it's someone that's going to look at this video and they're going to recognize me. I worked with that guy. And you will know that it can happen to anyone, no matter your age, how young, how old. But you just got to take precautionary measures and be safe.